It's the middle of 2026, DJI is currently still fighting the FCC to have their newer products sold in America, and it's at this moment you decided to go get your Part 107 drones pilot license because you want to start up a drone business. The good news is there are DJI drones that are readily available for you to purchase that will last until this whole FCC debacle is dealt with. And after countless hours of researching different drones, purchasing some used ones and test flying them, I believe I have figured out the 2 drones that you should buy right this moment that's going to handle 99% of the work that clients are going to ask you to do. For reference, I'm primarily going to be talking about videography, photography, and how you might be able to use both of those for maybe service-related jobs. I'm also going to say that I categorize myself as a beginner pilot based on how many hours I've flown and how many missions I have flown. So that way you have some context of where I'm coming from. So sit back and relax, get yourself a cup of coffee. Let's discuss which drones you should be buying right now. The primary drone that you're going to be flying for your business is going to be the DJI Air 3S. This drone is easily the best bang for your buck in terms of quality and abilities, and I'm going to break it all down so that you understand why. This drone sports a 2-camera system. Its main sensor, which is going to be your bread and butter, is a 1-inch sensor. 1-inch sensors is kind of like the sweet spot right now in terms of giving you the best quality and ability without a massive price tag. When you're flying during the daytime, the 1-inch sensor is going to capture some great colors, dynamic range, as well as detail. And for night missions, the 1-inch sensor is enough for you to capture some really great footage with minimal processing. Your secondary camera is a more zoomed in image at approximately 3 times or 70 millimeters. And this is where all the magic starts to happen for your drone work, because this lens can serve many different purposes. Number 1, it increases safety because maybe you're not allowed to fly over a certain area because there's a bunch of people below. Put a pin in that. So being able to zoom in allows you to get the shot while still keeping everyone safe. Now, if you leave the subjects exactly the same size in each frame, notice how the parallax looks completely different. The 3 times tele lens is going to give that more larger than life look, making your footage appear just a little bit more epic. And lastly, if you are doing some service type work, like maybe a roof inspection, instead of having your drone use the wide angle camera and flying much closer to the roof, you can keep your drone further away from the house, use that 3 times tele lens, and still be able to get some good shots for the roofing contractors. And in those cases, you might opt to take photos, of which both of these cameras do great because they use something called a quad Bayer sensor. And with quad Bayer sensors, you have 2 shooting modes. One that gives you the most amount of detail at a very high resolution, or you can shoot at a 12 megapixel mode, and that's going to give you the most fidelity, dynamic range, and if you are shooting some night photography, that's going to be your cleanest image. But keep in mind, it is 12 megapixels, so if you plan to digitally crop in, you're going to lose details much faster than if you shot in the higher resolution mode. Not only that, another feature for the photography side is that you can shoot RAW. So this is going to give you the most detailed image possible coming from the Air 3S. My recommendation is you should always shoot RAW no matter what. Unless the client is perfectly okay with a compressed JPEG image for their social media, that's fine, but always keep a RAW copy for yourself if you want to go back in and make sure you process everything to get the best image possible. In which case, you are able to capture a RAW and JPEG at exactly the same time. If your drone business is going to primarily focus on videography, then I would highly suggest that you purchase Freewell's split ND filters. And I know the Fly More combo is going to have DJI's own version. However, Freewell's version is much better because between the 2 lenses, they're actually different ND strengths. This is beneficial so that you can keep your ISO and shutter speeds the same, giving you consistency between your shots. I want to thank Freewell for sending this out to me when I requested it. They've been a great supporter of me and this channel, and honestly, I can wholeheartedly say their filters are very high quality. Pretty much all my cameras use them. So that takes care of the camera side. How does the Air 3S fly? The cool thing is that once you've flown a DJI drone, all the other drones from DJI basically feel and behave exactly the same. But due to its size, it's going to be able to handle winds a lot better than their lighter drones. Case in point, on this shoot day, the winds were constantly blowing at approximately 12 to 15 miles per hour, and the gusts would reach up to 26 miles per hour. And as you can see from the footage, it doesn't look like you can tell that wind was blowing at the drone constantly. The Air 3S was able to keep stable up in the air, allowing me to get some really smooth shots. And lastly, when the Air 3S came out, there were 2 new safety features that makes this super valuable. And the first one is the front-facing LiDAR sensor. LiDAR is kind of like sonar, except it's using light instead of sound. So while it's pinging a whole bunch of lasers in front of it, it's getting data as to how far is whatever object is bouncing back the laser. So in theory, it should be able to see and detect thin things like power lines and tree branches. But I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it slowly, do not fly towards power lines as a Part 107 licensed pilot. Don't do stupid shit. So while the LiDAR is great, especially when you're flying at night and you might not be able to see something, that laser is going to detect it. But please, 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 just map out everything ahead of time, understand what the risks are. This was all in your study guide in terms of getting your Part 107 license. Don't just trust the sensors. They are kind of just your backup emergency. Use your eyes and use common sense. And the second safety feature is so awesome. So the Air 3S, when it takes off, it starts building a little roadmap of what it remembers seeing around itself. So as you're flying away, it's like, okay, there was a tree over here, there's a building over here. So if you, for some reason, lose remote control communication with the drone, or the GPS suddenly disappears, in this case, the drone will be able to find its way back because it has a mental idea of what obstacles it was passing around as it flew away. This safety feature is so valuable because we've all heard horror stories of the olden days of drones when they kind of just started floating away and you had no way to stop it. Battery life on the Air 3S is more than enough to finish your missions per battery. DJI obviously has their ideal number, but in real world situations, specifically the one where I was fighting winds the entire time, I was still able to get approximately 30 minutes of flight time, which was more than enough for me to get the shots that day and more. So when you purchase your DJI Air 3S, you're definitely going to want to get the Fly More combo, as that's going to be the best deal in terms of everything you get, as well as the spare batteries. The question is, which combo should you get? The main difference is they're going to come with a different controller, and honestly, you can't go wrong with either one. I personally went with the more expensive combo, which is going to give you the RC2 remote. Having that built-in screen is very convenient, as well as you're going to be able to use the USB port on the bottom and feed an HDMI out to an external monitor, which is great for client work. You can also plug in a USB microphone receiver, and what that's going to do is when you're doing a screen recording, it's going to capture my voice, and that's exactly what you're hearing from right now. So maybe I'm doing a guided flight and I just kind of want to narrate what I'm seeing, or maybe I'm doing a tutorial and telling you how to go into your camera settings to turn on your histograms or turn on your peaking. This just makes the process so much easier, and I don't have to voice over after the fact. Now, while that sounds great and all, the RC2 does have one caveat, and that is the screen's brightness only gets to a maximum of 500 nits. And when you're outside in the full sunlight, you're probably going to want to buy an additional sun hood just to help you be able to see clearly. Whereas with the cheaper controller, you now have to use either a smartphone or a tablet. And in some cases, these flagship models will be able to have a much higher brightness, up to 1000 nits, when you're outside. So that's going to be much more comfortable for you to look at while you're operating your drone. For me, I personally own both of these controllers. The RC2 is my daily driver, and the RCN3 is my cheaper backup. Plus, I'm always guaranteed to have my smartphone with me, so I can still fly if my main controller suddenly goes bust. So as far as your primary drone goes, this is why I believe the Air 3S is going to be more than enough for what you need to do as a beginning drone pilot. If you're enjoying this video and you're getting value, like, subscribe, use my affiliate links down below, as that does help support the channel. So now let's get to your second drone. The second drone is a very interesting choice, and I have a feeling that some people are going to give me some flack for it, but trust me, if you listen to what I'm saying, it's all going to make sense. So your second drone is none other than the DJI Neo 2. Yes, I know that this little Neo 2 is essentially a toy when it comes to DJI's full lineup, and the camera specs is not gonna sound great on paper. It's a tiny half-inch sensor, it only shoots normal colors at 8-bit, no raw photo capabilities, and you can only shoot into its internal memories, no SD card slots. Now all of that sounds terrible on the camera end until you've realized that throughout this entire video, I've been purposely mixing the footage and not telling you which drone it came from to see if you would notice. And if you did notice a slight quality difference between the footage, let me know down below. So why am I saying that you need to have this drone in your fleet when the camera specs are not exactly up to par with the Air 3S? Well, remember when I told you to put a pin on something? If you've gotten over the PTSD of studying for your Part 107, there was a whole section based on flying over people. It probably flew over your head and you didn't think about how it's most likely going to apply to you. Because I kid you not, one client is going to ask you to fly over people, do all sorts of orbiting, and it's going to be fine. Until you realize that the FAA has very specific rules that say it's not fine. So you start researching, okay, how am I gonna fly over people? And then you suddenly realize that there are pretty much not a lot of drones that are certified to do so. At this point, you're just gonna tell your client, I'm sorry, I can't fly over people. But had you had the Neo 2, you would tell the client, yeah, I can get those shots. The reason the Neo 2 is allowed to fly over people as a Part 107 pilot is because it fits under Category 1 in terms of the rules. So let's read those rules verbatim. In Subpart D, Operations over Human Beings, it states that this subpart prescribes the eligibility and operating requirements for civil, small unmanned aircraft to operate over human beings or over moving vehicles in the United States, in addition to those operations permitted by 107.39 A and B, of which that specifically states that no person may operate a small unmanned aircraft over a human being unless that human being is strictly participating in the operation of the small unmanned aircraft, like a visual observer, or B, that human being is located under a covered structure or inside a stationary vehicle that can provide reasonable protection from a fallen small unmanned aircraft. Or Part C says the operation meets the specific requirements of at least one of the operational categories specified in Subpart D, which takes us back to here. On Part 107.105, the limitations on operations over human beings, it states that a remote pilot in command may conduct operations over human beings only in accordance with the following as applicable. We're going to be looking specifically at 107.11 for Category 1, which states that to conduct a Category 1 operations, a remote pilot in command must use a small unmanned aircraft that weighs 0.55 pounds or less on takeoff and throughout the duration of each operation under Category 1, including everything that is on board or otherwise attached to the aircraft, and does not contain any exposed rotating parts that could lacerate human skin upon impact with a human being. And then Part B, no remote pilot in command may operate a small unmanned aircraft in sustained flight over open-air assemblies of human beings unless the operation meets the requirements of Part 89.11, which that states simply that it needs to have a remote ID on board. So let's break down how this little Neo 2 falls under Category 1. First up, it's the weight. And we will be attaching a couple extra things onto this drone. The first thing we're going to attach is a magnetic ND filter made by Freewell. No, they didn't send that one out to me, I purchased it myself. That tells you all you need to know about why I like Freewell. The second thing you're going to attach is this wireless transmitter. Now, depending on which bundle you buy, it might come with it, but if it doesn't, you just purchase it separately. What this is going to allow you to do is it's going to talk to the exact remote you have for the Air 3S, so you can see where you're flying. You can even fly this much further away than if you just used your cell phone. The second rule says you got to make sure the propellers aren't going to cause any skin lacerations when it hits someone. Well, the Neo has basically propeller guards on the top and the bottom. So no matter how the drone hits you from the side, the top, or the bottom, it's not going to cause any sort of skin lacerations. The only way that a skin laceration could potentially happen is if you purposely hover it at approximately 3 feet and some kid comes over and grabs it like this, where their fingers could slip through the holes and therefore cut up their hands. But that's not how you're going to fly in general. So in terms of skin lacerations, these propeller guards are more than enough to keep someone safe. So then the last rule is, if you're going to do sustained flights over people, it needs to have remote ID. Now granted, a Part 107 licensed pilot, all your drones need to have remote ID. The Neo 2, on the other hand, does not have remote ID. However, that's not a problem because all you need to do is buy this tiny little remote ID module. So with all these accessories attached, when we put it back on the scale, this drone only weighs 176 grams on takeoff. That is well under the limit of 249. So by the FAA standards, this drone is a Category 1, which means you are allowed to fly over people. And that is how I was able to get these very specific shots flying over in an event for a client. They were happy, I was happy I was able to provide it for them, and it's all because of this cheap, tiny little drone. Now that you have a drone that can legally fly over people and get some really cool shots, I'm gonna say this one more time and I'm gonna say it again slowly. Don't do stupid shit. Fly this in a manner that's going to be safe for everyone around. Pretend this drone weighs 10 to 20 pounds up in the air and just be safe, okay? Don't ruin it for the rest of us. While the Neo 2 offers an amazing advantage in your overall fleet, there is one caveat you need to understand, and that is the battery life is only going to give you about 7 to 10 minutes of actual flight time. This is heavily dependent on how you fly your missions and, of course, the wind conditions. But if you are able to pre-plan the shots you're going to take, then 7 to 10 minutes of battery life is just going to be enough for you to get the shots you need and come back down. That being said, depending on what kind of drone services you're offering, there's a good chance that your clients are going to ask you to fly over people more often than not, in which case I would say you want to have at least 6 batteries or more. There is a higher capacity battery out there, but it's not officially made by DJI. It's essentially a modified battery that it kind of looks like it's hand put together. While many YouTubers have tested it and it seems like it works just fine, I'm not going to chance it on an actual client job or with my actual working drone, so I'm just going to stick with the official batteries. I hope this video gives you an idea of what your starting drone fleet should look like and how each drone is going to play a part in your drone business. Again, if you do purchase anything that I talk about, please use my affiliate links down below. That really does help support the channel so I can make more videos like this for you, because it's been a while, but it's good to be back. We'll see you in the next one.